Hello and welcome to Fox Gaming and yet another battle report for Middle-earth strategy battle game. In today's video we are going to play a 150 point game between the Dwarves of Khazad-Dum and the Serpent Horde. First we will go over the scenario for today and then we will show you the armies. Starting with the scenario, we are playing a smaller game of domination. We are going to have 3 objective markers, as you can see, one in the middle and one to each side. At the end of the game, if a player controls an objective, they get 2 victory points if there are no enemies within 3 inches of it, and if there are but they are outnumbering the enemy, they get 1 victory point. They also get 1 victory point for damaging the enemy leader and or killing them for that matter, and you get 1 victory point if the opposing force is broken at the end of the game. One army will deploy on this table edge and the other will deploy over here. We will see who will be on which side. The game will last until one warband is reduced to 25% of their starting numbers. Now, let's go into the armies. The first army is the Dwarves of Khazad-Dum, led by a dwarf captain, and with him there are 3 warriors with bow, 3 with two-handed axe and 3 with shields. The Serpent Horde have 13 models, 1 Haradrim king and 12 warriors, 6 with a bow and 6 with spear. The special rules for the Serpent Horde is that they can have 50% bows in their army, and they have 6, so it's below 50%, and they get the poisoned weapon special rule. This is not true for the king though, it's only the warriors, and that means that they can reroll to wound rolls of a 1. The special rules for the dwarves are as follows. They can reroll to wound rolls of a 1 in close combat. So the Serpent Horde will have the advantage in regards to rerolls, but they lack in other areas. So let's see who will get to be the winner in this battle. Let's begin. First we will roll which team will choose their table edge first, and the one who chooses their table edge will have to deploy their warband first. So the Serpent Horde gets a 3 and the Dwarves gets a 5. So the Dwarves will decide where to put their warband, and then the Serpent Horde will deploy after that. Alright, so deployment is done. The Dwarves have spread out on 2 flanks over here with the captain on the right side and one other with shield and 3 two-handed weapons over there. On this side, the 3 archers are accompanied by 2 warriors with shield. I may not have mentioned this before, but when I play on this little table, I just do so that the deployment zones are 1 inch or 2 inches onto the board, so that you can place 2 ranks of warriors. On to deployment for the Haradrim. Over here we have 3 with bow and 3 with spear, and over on this side we have the Haradrim king with the same cast of warriors, 3 with bow and 3 with spear. Now on to priority for turn 1. The Dwarves gets a 3 and Haradrim gets a 2, so the Dwarves will start to move. Alright, that is dwarf movement done. Moving 4 of them over on this flank 1 towards the center objective, and these 2 also going for the central objective. These 3 warriors with bow moved half distance to be able to fire if the enemy gets close enough. Over to the Serpent Horde movement phase. Not a lot of movement for the Haradrim, only these 3 spearmen and the Haradrim king are moving towards the central objective. I guess that they will rely on their bows to fend off the dwarves. Let's see how they do in the shooting phase. Starting with dwarven shooting, they will fire their bows at these Haradrim warriors. They have the hill crest in the way though, so they will need to make some in the way rolls. They moved, so they need 4 or 5 up rather to hit. Let's see what they get. They get 1 hit. 4 up in the way and hits the hill crest. The Haradrim bowmen have a longer range, up to 24 inches, and these 3 will fire at these 3 dwarf warriors. They have stood still, so 4 up to hit. And gets 3 hits. Amazing start. Strength of 2 against a defense of 6, which means 6 is to wound. And gets nothing. Next, these warriors with bow will fire at the enemy captain, needing 4 up to hits because they stood still. Gets 2 hits and needs 6s by 5s to wound. Can they get it? No, but they get a 1. They can reroll because of poisoned weapons and nothing. Priority, turn 2, goes to the dwarves. Alright, so these archers from the dwarves moved up closer to be able to shoot at the enemy archers, which I think is a good idea. These 2 dwarf warriors went into the central objective, and these warriors and the captain shimmied around to support their comrades in the middle of the board. Realizing that the long slogging over here would probably kill them in the end. On to movement for the Haradrim. The Haradrim king and 3 of his warriors went in to contest the objective in the middle. There will probably be a fight here next turn. These spearmen moved in closer as well, but the archers stood still to fire with no penalties. Shooting phase, starting with the dwarves, firing at the Haradrim warriors with bow, needing 5 up to hit because they moved, and gets 1 hit. Strength of 3 against a defense of 4, needing 5 up to kill. And gets it, 1 Haradrim archer is dead. Shooting phase for the Haradrim, can they respond to this? These 2 will fire at the dwarves once again, needing 4 up to hit. And gets 2 1s. Next, these warriors with bow will fire at this dwarf with 2-handed axe. We can do it one at a time in case they hit something or manages to kill him rather. So the one on the right will start and we will work our way to the left. So 4 up to hit, he scores a hit, no in the way, so he needs a 6 to kill. Nothing, but he can reroll because of poison weapons. No. Next archer, same target, needing 4 up to hit, he hits, and a 6 to kill. No, but can reroll because of poisoned weapons. Nothing. And the last warrior hits on a 4, needing 6s, and gets the kill. 1 dwarf is slain. Priority for the next turn, the Serpent Horde gets a 6 and the dwarves gets a 4, so Haradrim will go on to movement. That is movement done for both sides, and we got a clash in the middle here with some 2-on-1 fights and 1-on-1 fights. The archers over here shifted along the side, so one of them can shoot, that one to be exact. These other 2 moved over half their movement allowance, which means they cannot fire their bows. They stood still, these stood still also, so we have a firing match. I forgot to move these warriors, but of course they will move towards the fray, and next turn they will be able to go into combat. Shooting phase for the Haradrim, these 2 will fire at the dwarves, needing 4 up to hit, getting 1 hit and needs 6s to wound. Nothing but poisoned weapons, can reroll, and no, not good enough. This archer over here will fire at this dwarf, needing a 5 up to hit because he moved, and he hits. Can he kill him on a roll of a 6 by 4? He gets the 6, can he get a 4? No! The dwarves are firing back at the Haradrim with bow, and they need 4 up to hit because they stood still, getting 1 hit. Strength of 3 against defense 4, that's 5 up. No, nothing. Going into the fight phase, starting with this dwarf with 2-handed axe against the spearman. And the dwarf sets the bar and gets a 6, which is turned down to a 5. And the Haradrim also gets a 6, lucky break. Needing 6s to wound? No. Next, we have the king against a dwarf with shield, and the king sets the bar and gets a 3. The dwarf gets a 2. The king has a strength of 4 against a defense of 7, so he needs 6s. But he has 2 attacks. Can he kill the dwarf? No, but he will use a point of might to turn that 5 into a 6, killing him off. Yoink. Lastly, we have a 2 against 1, and the dwarf will be shielding, and the Haradrim sets the bar and gets a 6. And the dwarf also gets a 6. The dwarf has a fight value of 4 and the Haradrim has 3, so the Haradrim lose the fights. Priority for the next turn goes to the dwarves. In the dwarf movement phase, these archers continued to stand still to try to fire at the enemy archers. And over here we have a dwarf who went into combat with this guy, and the dwarf into combat here, and the captain and the king are going to fight it out. Over here, a dwarf got into the rear of this one, and this dwarf tried to hold off as many as possible to make the combats favorable for the dwarves. On to movement for the Haradrim. Alright, that's movement done. This Haradrim warrior went around this combat and into this dwarf over here, making it a 2 against 1. The archer over here moved half distance, getting within 3 inches of the objective, and these two moved full to get closer to the action. These two stood still to fire their bows. On to shooting phase. The dwarves will fire at the Haradrim with bow, needing 4 up to hits. Getting 2 hits. 5s to kill. Can they do both? Oh, they get one of them. Haradrim is shooting back this one into the dwarves, needing a 4 up to hit. And he hits, needing 6s to kill. No. This archer will take a chance and fire at the dwarf in the middle over there, needing 5 up to hit. He hits. 4 up, it will hit the dwarf, and 1 to 3 will hit the Haradrim. He hits the Haradrim. Okay, who will he hit? 1 to 3 goes on the king. No, 1 to 4 goes on to 1 to 3 goes on to this guy. 4 to 6 go on to this guy. And we get the Haradrim over there. Okay, so a strength of 2 against the defense 4. That is 5s to kill, and he kills his own guy. On to the fight phase. This dwarf over here fighting 2 Haradrim warriors. He will be shielding, and he gets a 5. The Haradrim gets a 4. Next we have a 1-on-1 over here. The dwarf will fight 2-handed, and the dwarf gets a 3, which is turned down to a 2, and Haradrim also gets a 3, but winning the fights. Needing 6s to kill the dwarf, and he gets it. Next we have a 1-on-1 over here, and the dwarf sets the bar, gets a 2, which is turned down to a 1, and the Haradrim also gets a 1 and loses on fight value. Normally the dwarf will need a 5 to kill, but because of his 2-hander he will need 4 up. Can he do it? Yes, he can. The Haradrim warrior is dead. 1 against 1 over here, and the Haradrim sets the bar at a 6, and the dwarf gets a 4. 6s to kill? No, but poisoned weapons can reroll to wound on a 1, and gets another 1, but you cannot reroll a reroll, so that's it for this fight. Alright, so it's the king against the captain, the prime champions of the warbands. Okay, that was lame. Alright, so the king sets the bar, he gets a 4, and the dwarf captain gets a 6. The captain has a strength of 4 against a defense of 5, so he needs 5s to wound, and he gets 1-5, and he can reroll once in close combats because of his keyword is Khazad-Dum or Moria, depending, because of their special rules, so he can reroll this one and gets a 2. The king will use his fate points, and he saves. Priority for the next turn goes to the dwarves. Alright, so the dwarf archers, two of them moved half distance to be able to fire their bows at this guy, trying to kill him off. The last one moved over here, full move to get into combat later. The dwarf captain once again went into combat with the king, and we have a 1-on-1 over there and 1-on-1 over there. Here we have a 2-on-1 with the dwarf trying to hold off the reinforcements of the Haradrim. They have yet to move, but as it stands, the dwarf controls this objective, Haradrim controls this one, and this one is kind of mayhem, I think. So let's see how this turns out. Alright, so the Serpent Horde moved closer with this model, half distance to be able to still fire their bow. Went into combat over here with one of the archers, the other one is wrapping around to try to get into the rear of the captain, and the last one went on top of the objective, keeping it safe for now. In the shooting phase, these two dwarves will fire at this one over here, needing a 5 up to hit because they moved. And they score 2 hits. Wonderful. And 5s to kill. And gets it. This one is gone. No shooting from the Haradrim as it did not go that well last time. So on to the fight phase. Starting with this fight over here, the dwarf will be shielding and he gets a 3 and the Haradrim gets a 6. Strength of 3 against a defense of 7, so 6s to kill. Rerolling 1s, nothing. 6s if you add them together. Next we have this combat. The Haradrim will have 2 attacks and the dwarf will strike with a normal weapon, negating his 2-hander. The Haradrim sets the bar and gets a 3 and the dwarf gets a 1. 6s to kill the dwarves. Yeah, they got it. The dwarf is dead. 1-on-1 over here and the dwarf will set the bar, gets a 4 and the Haradrim gets a 3. Needing 5s to kill. Nope. Lastly, we have the king against the captain, and the captain sets the bar, he gets a 5, a strong start, and the king gets a 3. This one is important, and the captain gets a 5 and a 3. That is 1 wound. No fate left on the king, so he loses 1 wound and has 1 wound remaining. Priority for the next turn, Haradrim gets a 4 and the dwarves gets a 4, so Haradrim will get it this time. Still keeping one of their archers on this objective, and the other one went into combats over here on multiple fronts onto the dwarves. Movements. The dwarves could only move their archers, but both of them went into combats over here, evening the odds, still being within 3 inches of the objective. In the fight phase, starting over here, the Haradrim sets the bar and gets a 5, and the dwarf gets also 5 and wins on fight value. 5 up to kill. And gets it. 1 Haradrim is dead. Next we have the king and the captain sets the bar. He gets a 5 and the Haradrim king gets a 4 and the last warrior gets a 6. The captain will use a point of might to turn his 5 into a 6. And with equal fight value against the king, who also has a fight of 5, a 3 or lower is evil, and it is evil who wins today. The warrior will need a 6x4 to wound the captain and doesn't get it. The king, however, only needs 6s, and he gets 1 6. Fate roll for the dwarf captain, and he fails. 1 wound taken and no fate remaining. Next we have a 1-on-1 over here, and the dwarf gets a 1 and the warrior of the serpent horde also gets a 1 and loses on fight value. 5 up to kill and gets it. The warrior is gone. 1-on-1 over here, and the Haradrim gets a 2, the dwarf gets a 2 but wins on fight value. 5s to kill and gets it. Incredible. 2-on-1 over here, and the Haradrim sets the bar with a 4 and the dwarves gets a 5. 5s to kill and double 5. He is dead. As it stands right now, the Haradrim have been halved, or they are broken rather. The dwarves are not, and for victory points, the Haradrim were over here securing this objective. In the middle there is a tie, I think, and over here the dwarves have this one. Both of the leaders are wounded, so let's just see how this plays out. On to priority. The dwarves 6, Haradrim 6, which means it goes to the dwarves. The king will use a point of might, his last point of might, calling a heroic move, and this is countered by the dwarf, which is also out of might at this point. A roll-off then, 4 to 6 goes to good, and it does. This is not looking good for the Haradrim, and the dwarves have swarmed them completely. Next, the warrior of the serpent horde will just move in here to equal the or even the odds rather. So let's go on to the combat phase. Starting with this combat, 1 against 1, the Haradrim gets a 1 and the Dwarves gets a 6, a 5 up to kill and nothing. 1 against 1 over here, the Haradrim sets the bar at a 2, the Dwarf gets a 2, wins on fight value, needing 5 up to kill and nothing. Alright, so 1 captain and 2 warriors against the king, and the king sets the bar, he gets a 6, important roll. Next we have the captain, and the captain gets a 4, and the other 2 dwarf warriors gets a 5, which means that the king has won. He will strike at the warriors with bow, needing 5 up to kill them, and he gets 1/6, so one of the warriors is dead. I totally forgot courage checks, so let's just do that for the round before this one, and they are good. The Haradrim are good, except for this one, also needs to test, and he flees. And that means that the battle is over because the Haradrim have been reduced to 25% or less. The dwarves were broken this round, so if they had not lost this one model, things could look differently. But they both, or the dwarves control the center objective with more models, so they get 1 victory point for that, and they get 1 victory point for damaging the enemy up to 2, and they broke their opponent's force, so 3 victory points for the dwarves. The Haradrim gets only 1 victory point for wounding the dwarf, and they get 1 victory point for breaking their enemy. So 3 points to the dwarves and 2 to the Haradrim. So a close game this, very fun to play. Congratulations to the dwarves. See you next time. This is it for now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content like this. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with our latest videos and be a part of our growing community. We appreciate your support, and it encourages us to create more valuable content. So go ahead, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you in the next video.